Season liberally. Hey guys, this is Jeremy. Welcome back to Geared for Change Cooking. We're gonna do 2 dishes today. One is a lamb meatloaf for a little spin on meatloaf, and one is moussaka, which is a layered vegetable dish, kind of like a Greek lasagna. Give them a shot. We'll put the recipes up. Tell me what you think, and I hope you enjoy. So I'm starting the base of the moussaka here. So I have my eggplant and my potato slices. I did Yukon Gold potatoes. They're going to be the layers in my moussaka or my lasagna. So I'm going to actually roast these up first, let these sit, so they'll be pretty much cooked through. And then when I assemble the dish later, it'll be pretty easy to put together. This is a good little blend we get from Penzeys. Nice little salt-free flavor. So it's plenty of salt in the garlic salt and lemon pepper. Just want to season these through, give a little bit nice of a flavor to them. And then I'm going to flip these over. I got to get the other one here. Get the other side seasoned. And let these go for about 30 to 35 minutes in a 400-degree oven. .30 All right, everyone, we're gonna be putting together this lamb meatloaf here today. I have about 4 pounds of fresh ground lamb. Fresh Time down at university, they have fresh, not frozen lamb. Pretty cheap too, $6.99 a pound, not really too bad. This is very lean. This is about a 93.7 actually on this lamb, so very lean. What we're gonna do is with this 4 pounds, I have everything laid out, so you just see how I put it in using a fork and your mitts. We're gonna do this really nice and mixed together. Then we'll probably put it in maybe 2, possibly 3 loaf pans. We'll do that 4 pounds pretty easy. So I'm gonna kind of start with some of my wet stuff here just to give a little base. I'm gonna put shallots right in right away. So I have about 4 minced up shallots here, okay? A lot of shallots, that's a lot of our moisture. And just go into it rough right away because we're gonna mash it all up in there too. Not over mix it too much, but just go ahead and put everything in first before you mix it up. A little brown mustard, that's still for some moisture and a little bit of binding. I'm just gonna do a little bit. We can always add a little bit more, maybe about 2 tablespoons. Do a little splash of red wine vinegar around the sides. That'll help kind of bring in everything too, and a little splash of olive oil around the sides too. Plenty, should be plenty wet. I'm gonna do balsamic glaze, which is my replacement of ketchup. This does add a good little bit of color to it and another good way to kind of stick everything together. So we'll go ahead and do seasonings here too with some garlic. So just some minced garlic. I'm gonna use half of this in my moussaka too. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do about half there. Oh, garlic's good for you, antioxidants. So a little salt. There will be salt in the meat as well too. Little lemon pepper. Do a little bit of cumin too. Kind of some smokiness in there as well. This ends up tasting like a big gyro when it's done. Black pepper. We're okay with a little bit of black pepper in our house. This is a Mediterranean blend that's got some chili flake, dill, thyme, citrus peel, quite a bit of goodness in here too, and actually has a decent amount of kick too. So we'll do about 2 good pinches of that guy. Nice, and then this would be more of just my herbs for that mix again too. So a little oregano, a little thyme, a little rosemary. That should be good to go now. We'll see how much that kind of gets going. I'm gonna do my eggs and my Parmesan cheese next. So Parmesan cheese is my binder. I will do about, and actually, excuse me, do get grated Parmesan cheese. It's a little bit drier too. We want that to kind of act as our binder when we don't have a lot of bread in here. So we got Parmesan cheese and then some whole wheat breadcrumbs as well. Panko or whole wheat, both fine, both a good alternative. Actually, uncooked oats work pretty well too, but we'll do about a cup of breadcrumbs in there too. So we'll crack our eggs in. Uno. 2. I'm gonna do 4 eggs, pretty much an egg for a pound of meat. 4, and I'm gonna do a full 5 ounces of feta cheese. So that'll also act, kind of incorporate into the mix as well. Now we should have about everything in there, so we're gonna go ahead and start to mix this up. So I usually do 1 fork, 1 hand, but we're gonna try to bring everything in from the sides and not go too much, but break your yolks. Let those start to come in. And this is a bit of a wetter meatloaf. So what we're gonna do is pan sear this for service once it's done. So I usually cook this, let it cool, make slices of it, pan sear that right into a hot pan with butter or oil as well, and kind of get some more texture on it before you serve it. All right, so this is sat for about 10 minutes or so. Everything's kind of married in. It looks to be about the right consistency. Not moving too much, actually looks really good. So kind of split this up pretty evenly. I have 2 greased loaf pans here. I'm gonna go ahead and just use my hands, get after it. Don't ball it too tight. I wanna kind of keep this loose, but make sure it does form. So, and then if you're pro, we'll make it kind of still have that little bit of a rounded shape. Going in at 400. Both top shelf, get that top layer nice and roasty. And we'll set a timer for about 45 minutes. And check them there to see if they've come up to about 155 to 160. Should carry cook through all the way up to 165 when they're done. All right, so my onions and mushrooms have got a lot of their water cooked out, just starting to brown a little bit. So now I'm gonna go ahead and season. You don't wanna season too early, kind of want everything to open up first. Take some of that seasoning and get some of that water out of the way first. So we'll go ahead and season these, turn the heat down to medium, and now we'll start to build a little bit of flavor. So we just got salt. That's all the salt I'm gonna do for the dish. There's a lot of salt. It's gonna end up being a lot of stuff in here. Lemon pepper. And I also always buy no salt added garbanzo beans and stewed tomatoes too, so I can kind of control the salt my own. A little black pepper. I'm gonna still do a little bit of cumin and some of those Mediterranean flavors and a little bit more smokiness. And the same too I did on my potatoes and eggplant. Some herbs. Fresh parsley will go in at the end once again. Don't want to wilt it yet. Chili flake, citrus peel, orange, lemon. Everything good. And go ahead and let everything start to stick a little bit. We're going to deglaze everything with a little stock and our tomato puree and our stewed tomatoes as well. And that will be the base. I'm going to let that kind of get to a nice thickened point as well. So probably only about 15 minutes after I add everything else in, just to let some of the tinniness cook out of those tomatoes. Don't want to go too much longer to burn the garlic, anything like that. All right, so these are about all the way cooked through. I'm gonna add my garlic now. Didn't want to burn it just yet, so I got about another 2 tablespoons of garlic. I'm gonna let that burn through for about 2 minutes. And then I'm going to deglaze with all of this. All right, so I'm going to deglaze some of this here first, a little red wine vinegar. And I'm going to wait a little bit to add my stock so I can kind of burn some of that off here. And just try to get some of that stickiness up from the pan. Yeah, and that will come up with my tomatoes and my stock here once I simmer. All that good stuff on the bottom. There we go. So starting to come on up here. Now I'm going to add a little bit of stock first just to warm that through. So I'm probably just gonna do about maybe a half a cup of stock here. I don't want it to be too much. I got some more moisture coming up here as well. And once again, if you feel you add too much, I always like to eyeball stuff, cook it out a little bit longer, and let it thicken up. Good, so now we're gonna add our chickpeas, stewed tomatoes, and a little tomato puree, and let this simmer for about 15 minutes. A little bit of diced, no salt added tomatoes with some basil, oregano, and thyme. And then a little tomato puree, which is gonna act as the rest of my base here. So now, I'm gonna turn this down to about medium-low. And without the top on, because I want some of the moisture to still escape, I'm gonna let this simmer for about 15 minutes until it gets to the thickness I want and those chickpeas are a little bit tender coming through. But it is still gonna bake for about another 30 minutes in the oven. I'm gonna make my sauce for the moussaka here. It's kind of like a cheese sauce, but instead of the traditional bechamel, I'm gonna do a little bit healthier version, so it's still a Greek yogurt based one. Full fat Greek yogurt, just a couple seasonings. I'm gonna do a little nutmeg. So it's pretty traditional in that cheese sauce as well. So I'm gonna do nutmeg, maybe about a quarter teaspoon. This guy comes out a little bit faster, but we'll taste this after the end too. Yes, it does have raw eggs, but we can still taste it. Just a little lemon pepper as well, and a little black pepper too. So we get kind of just a good flavorful cheese sauce as well. All right, so 2 eggs and Parmesan cheese. And we're gonna fork whisk this up. And that should be about good. And then we have just a little bit of still grated Parmesan cheese. And we'll see what the consistency comes with this together. And we are gonna have at it with a fork.
Are you fine? That's good.
All right, everyone, we are going to assemble the moussaka. So I'm going to start with probably a little layer of my vegetable mix first and the tomato. Probably a little layer of everything evenly mixed with potato and eggplant. I'm going to save a few eggplant for the top, very traditional style, just to have that roasted eggplant on the top of the moussaka. Some fresh diced up parsley and our cheese sauce over here. So we'll just go ahead and have at it, kind of see how it works out. Assembly pattern here. I'm just gonna mix the potatoes and the eggplant willy-nilly all over everything here too. Do a little bit of parsley in between each layer as well. Put in some of my cheese sauce here. And we do wanna save a good amount of this cheese sauce to go over the top. So I think probably just 2 good spoonfuls here. Maybe a little bit more. 2.5 spoonfuls for a precise measurement in. Go ahead and do another layer. Nope. We're gonna let it go. All right, guys, so pretty much perfectly spaced on this one. We're going to cover this when we bake it so that it does get a little bit of steam in there, and let that cheese sauce really go down in, and let that guy bake down. And probably marry everything together. And that is moussaka ready for the oven. Probably about 30 minutes at 350, not super high heat, but just to let everything come together. Let it cool for about 15 minutes. When we pull it out, we'll show it to you when it's done. By the time this is done, our lamb will be about perfect and everything can rest for about 15 minutes. Tomatoey, nice, good. Probably a little touch too full. The lamb meatloaf turns out great. It is a wet meatloaf, so I do prefer to let this cool for a good while. Make sure it's up to that 155 to 165. Just by the time it's still sitting out here to carry cook over, should be fine. And we're creeping up there, should be good. So this is good to eat right away. You want this to cool down a little bit, just like a lasagna, 20 minutes or so. Give a good spoonful out, slice of meatloaf. Looks good, everything is perfect. We are at 165 perfectly. Give it a shot if you'd like. We'll post the recipes and walk through it. And let me know if you did try it and if you have any thoughts or if you liked it. Thanks, guys.